Welcome, everybody, to the Stay on Course podcast. Today we have Toni Will, and she is a powerhouse leader who blends elite performance with heart center connections, proving that competence and community can actually coexist. As a general manager of the K Wings, TEDx speaker, entrepreneur, podcaster, lifestyle and professional development coach, and two-time Guinness World Record holder, she embodies bold action, contagious energy, and the kind of belief that moves people into their bigger game. And Toni has a new book coming out called Rebellious Success. The pre-order comes out on March 13th and the book comes out on August 11th. And in this episode, we're going to talk about confidence today and how confidence is not something that you're just born with, but something that develops over time. And we're going to explore why building a failure resume may be one of the most powerful confidence exercises you will ever do, and how playing small to make others comfortable keeps everyone stuck. Toni, welcome to the Stay on Course podcast.
Thanks, Julie. It's so awesome to be here.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here. But before we get started, I ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food?
Sushi.
Is there a specific kind?
Nah, no. Anything from the grocery store, as long as it's not expired, all the way up to, dropped out of the sea from Hawaii. It's all good to me.
All right. So you're into the raw fish or do you like the rolls?
No, I like raw fish and rolls, but I like both. But I'm all about the raw stuff too.
All right. It's delicious. Well, thanks, Toni. So what are you busy working on right now? I know you have a couple of things going on. Before we get started into talking about our failure resume, what's going on, Toni?
What isn't going on, Julie? So I mean, just that bio, my intro alone. Yeah. So the big stuff that's going on right now. I'm in the middle of hockey season. So as you introed me, I am the general manager and governor for the Kalamazoo Wings, which is a men's AA professional hockey team in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And so we're in the middle of hockey season right now. And then my conference is coming up in a couple weeks called Empower Her. And then my book, Rebellious Success, I've been working on it for 2 years. And we worked, my publisher and I worked together to bring the cover reveal and the pre-sale at the same time. And so that's what's happening here in Kalamazoo in a couple weeks. So a lot revolving around my hometown in Kalamazoo and just projects I'm working on.
I love it. I love the title Rebellious Success. Can you just give us a little bit about like what is this book about?
Yeah, the idea behind the book, well, first off, it's creative nonfiction, and I describe it as a three-legged stool. So it's one part memoir, it's one part self-help, and it's one part business leadership. And so you bring those thirds together, you got 100% path to success that is not linear, and basically giving people permission to do success how they want to do it and define it. And in the book, it tells you how.
I love it. Everybody, Rebellious Success coming out this summer, pre-order March 13th.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, let's get into this conversation. When we met at Podfest,
we did.
getting our lunch.
It was the best way to meet. You and I were standing in front of the grab and go with like little choices, and we just started talking to each other.
And I'm like, should I get the chicken salad? Should I get the tuna? It was one of those moments.
It was, and then we had lunch together.
Yeah. It was cool. It was so cool. I'm like, you want to have lunch? And you're like, yeah, let's have lunch. And then we get into this whole conversation. So you never know who you're going to meet and when you're going to meet them. Be open to the possibility. But today we're going to be talking about too much, being too much, and the power of failure and how it plays to aid in our bigger game. Let's start about talking about inviting failure to the table, because I think that when we first talked, we talked about having this failure resume
Yeah.
and just giving yourself permission to fail.
Yeah, so this is something that I didn't make up a failure resume. I'm, big into self-improvement and personal growth, and I heard it somewhere over my years of working the last 25 years. And I love the notion of it because it boils down to beliefs. I feel like belief or failure is just BS. And the only time that you're failing is when you quit trying. And so this idea of what if you wrote down everything you fail, and I'm using air quotes if you're listening to this, everything you failed at. Because here's the thing, I failed at a lot of things in my life, and I'm still here and I'm still standing. And so I know when you and I talked, I'm an open book, quite literally. I've had two failed marriages. Third time's a charm. I'm, kicking ass on this one. But I've also, had jobs where we parted ways, and it wasn't, I would say, I mean, I had a severance package, so, put two and two together there. So there are things in life where it feels like it's never going to get better and how am I ever going to climb out of this? But it's actually creating a lot of wisdom and strength. And the best things that have happened in my life have come through these quote unquote failures.
Yeah. And I think I love the failure, accepting it, embracing it, looking for it. Ooh, what if we just went out and looked for opportunities to fail? Because what it does is it just shows you that you're doing the thing. You're doing the thing.
Yes. And how like fear is a big part of this, right? Like when I'm coaching clients, they're like, I'm just afraid to fail. And I'm like, why? What's the worst that could happen? I mean, starting a business, it's scary, but what's the worst that could happen? You learn something, you maybe you lose some money on it, but you can bounce back from that. I've set money on fire doing way stupider things, so why not try?
Why not try? I think also failure comes a lot, well, at least in my journey. Failure came from trying stuff that maybe didn't feel aligned to who I was. The thing is, it's like in my corporate job, I knew there was like something more. There was something more coming next. And I would just continue to put myself in situations where it was comfortable because I knew I was going to get a paycheck. I knew that was my background. But every time I would just jump back in, it would feel so hard. It would feel like I was failing. But in essence, like when I look back at it, it was really more like I wasn't aligned. And through the journey, though, I failed and learned. And so I think like there is a learning journey that we're on.
100%. And when you talk about alignment, the two words come to mind, core values. And, I quit drinking 5.5 years ago. One of my core values is health and wellness. And when I quit drinking, I was in line with that core value. And then that core value, integrity is a core value of mine. And so, again, when I found that clarity through removing, for me, it was alcohol from my life, I was able to really start to align those core values within me. I'm trusting myself more. And then I'm like, okay, I'm trusting, there's a lot more self-trust. So, where can I apply that, whether it's in my corporate career, which I have, or in my entrepreneurial endeavors, which I have? I have both. And so, right now, but I trust that I can balance all that because I shed alcohol in my story. And that allowed me to free up time and self-trust to try these things. And it may or may not work, but I'm willing to take a risk.
Yeah. And I think the opposite of taking the risk, like if you don't take the risk, you have a greater opportunity to live a life that you regret.
Yes. And what to me, what I hear when you and I are talking about this is having a willingness to be uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, that's when we're growing. And it sounds cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason because they're true.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do we talk about watching TV during the day? As long as you're doing the thing and you're not sitting on the couch watching like daytime television. That I had this conversation with somebody yesterday and they were talking about daytime television. And I'm like, I haven't watched daytime television since I was in high school. Right. But that just means that I'm not sitting in front of the TV in the daytime. I am doing at night. I mean, I got to
Same.
tell you, I have a Netflix thing that I do at night. But like in the day, I'm working. I'm doing something that is putting me in a situation to be uncomfortable, like probably every day.
Well, exactly. I mean, think about this. You and I are both podcasters. You're going to be on my podcast here soon. And we didn't know what we were doing. And it's another tool to help us do the work we're doing. And so that's a risk by creating a podcast, putting ourselves out there. Are people going to listen? And that's how we met, was like at Podfest, because we're doing this business and putting ourselves out there, and not, watching TV all day. I wouldn't even know what to do with myself.
Well, I mean, you know, I was a single mom for many years. Were you a single mom also throughout the journey?
That is a whole other podcast. No, basically, every time I started to date after a divorce, it ended up being my next husband.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was a single mom for many years, so I didn't really have the opportunity to get comfortable in life. I feel like there was always an uncomfortableness to life where I was always thinking about how am I making my next batch of money? How am I going to survive and pay for my house and all the things that I needed to pay for? So I didn't have the opportunity,
Mhm.
although sometimes I see those ladies who lunch.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
There are ladies out there who lunch, and maybe there's men out there that lunch, but they wear their yoga pants and they're going out to lunch and they're going to the gym. I just didn't get that chance in life, Tony.
Yeah, you know what I think though is, Julie? I think you and I don't have that part in our DNA. Like we love, I mean, I'm getting to know you, but I get the same vibe that we both love to work. It gives us meaning and purpose, and it's part of it's our North Star in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is the next ingredient for success you want to talk about?
So the next one is stop playing small because someone else is. And this is where I see women oftentimes hold themselves back. It,
Yes.
and so my conference, Empower Her, is really about women stepping into their own. And by that, I mean, whether it's personal or professional. And it doesn't matter what they do. They could be staying at home raising the kids, they could be retired, and everything in between. It is that belief in oneself that whatever you as a woman in this world in 2026 set out to do, you can, even if you don't know how. And starting to take that seat at that table, whatever that table is. Like we've talked about, that table for us is podcasting, or it's coaching clients, or it's parenting, all of which that we both do. I mean, we have multiple tables in our lives, but which ones are we pulling seats up to, even though we don't know how to do it? Or even if we do know how, are we doing it right or well?
Yeah. I think it's so interesting when you meet somebody new for the first time, right? Because they don't know you. So in that moment, you can play as big or small as you want to. And usually I'm playing off the person that I'm talking to, right?
Right.
So it almost makes you feel uncomfortable when someone's playing small because
Yes.
then you cannot be your full self because you're kind of worried about this person. And oh, am I going to be too much for that person? And you can tell immediately if someone likes you or not. At least I can. Or they're feeling that energy exchange. I don't know, it's just so interesting.
I totally agree. And you and I are a great example of that because how I check in with myself on that is like you and I were both sharing because we didn't know each other at all, other than we were both at Podfest. And one of the things you had said to me was how your podcast, where it's ranked. And I was like, that's awesome. And when I was like, good for you, I said, congratulations. And this is where I check in with myself. When I said that to you, in my head, I go, I just want to, Tony, check in. Do you mean that? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so for me, that is this there's no competition. There's only lifting other women up. And which is aligned with my core values and aligned with the message I'm sending out to the world. So that I just do a quick gut check with myself and I'm like, tell me how you did that. And then you and I kept talking
Yeah.
and I, it was never a competition vibe. It was more like, how can we work together?
And in some instances, I'm like, well, now I'm thinking like, well, why did I even tell you that? What made me? Well, I'm also telling people because I want people to know how to do it as well.
Yeah.
And the other part is that in some rare cases, people take me a little more seriously when they hear that. So I don't know who I'm talking to when I'm saying that, right? So it could feel too much for somebody that hears that, and it could be too small for somebody else who hears it. So
Yeah.
you just don't know. You literally do not know where it's going to land because when you first meet somebody, you just don't know them. So in my case, I'm just going to show up as me and I'm just going to let that land wherever it's going to land because I don't know. I talk to a growth specialist. I talk to, at Podfest, you don't know who you're talking to. I talk to someone who has 1 million downloads.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, there's this podcaster that you meet, and I don't know that that person has 1 million downloads a month. I don't know that, right? But if I just show up as me, the unfiltered, authentic version, then I just let that play out into the world because I don't have the energy, Toni. I really don't have the energy to be anyone else but me.
I love that. And that's one of the things that drew me to you was your authenticity and probably vice versa, because I too, I'm just showing up as me, whether I'm being interviewed on a podcast or I'm standing at a grab and go at a conference or I'm at the waiting room at my doctor's office. You are getting the exact same version of me.
Yes.
And I also, when I go into a lot of things, I don't over prepare. So I just come as me. That what the
Mhm.
answers you're going to get when you interview me are just me as of this day today. I'm not manufactured in any way. And sometimes I ran into this last week. I was being interviewed on a podcast, and before we hit record, I clearly this person felt this woman, and I didn't research her. And she was making it very known that she was alpha because she had so many books published and all these things. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, congratulations. And I meant that. I'm like, I'm really happy for you. But I noted that energy exchange and it was different.
Yes. Like, okay, there is this thing, I think, with women, right? There is this thing, and it exists. It's a real thing because
It's real.
it's real. It's real. There is a like this I don't know, was a competition thing or whatever thing. It's real. It exists. I can feel it. I can tangibly feel it when I go out and I meet somebody who is just intimidated by me or I'm too much for them. I can feel it immediately and I'm like, and then I can make a barometer. Okay, wait, Julie, pull back a little bit because this person is not okay with the way you're showing up.
Yeah.
But I don't know that at first, right? So I have to first go in as me, and
Yep.
then if I need to pull back because that person cannot accept the full version of me, then I will because that's the emotional intelligence part of the conversation. But at no point does it work if I go in less
Yeah.
initially, right?
Exactly. And here's the other thing. I use that. I did not get offended. I what my feelings weren't hurt. I just used that as a reference point. I'm like, okay. And I'm still going to be Tony. I'm going to pull back a little bit. Clearly, alpha positioning is important in that scenario. And I understand that because there are times in my life, especially working in a male-dominated industry
Yeah.
like hockey, that I need to tap into that. And that's totally fine. And so what I did was I did the interview. I feel comfortable being interviewed anyways, but I felt even more comfortable because I understood the positioning. I pulled back a
Mm.
little bit. And then afterwards, I reached out to her and invited her on my podcast as well. And she politely declined. She's not doing interviews right now. No problem. And that was that. And I feel good about the interaction, and I was authentic to who I was. But it is a great example of
It's a good example.
yeah, it's just
It's
real
a
life.
it's a good example because of the positioning. And this is a female to female thing. We do have a lot of male listeners, but I'm sure that there's the alpha male part too. So understanding like what is going on in the moment and then just like understanding too, there's this other thing, right? When people come to you that do the same thing as you do, I think that's where it comes in the most, right? So when you're a coach and you meet another coach and you're located in the same area, I had this happen twice to me. I met local coaches and I could feel their daggers, Toni. I felt like viscerally, I felt that they didn't like me,
Yeah.
And I'm just going in, I'm like, hi, I'm Julie. I'm always open to collaborations. I want to know what they're doing. I'm not trying to steal information, but I just want to go in there because you don't know. You don't know that person you're going to jive with, and now you're going to do an event with them, and you're both going to help each other. Like, there are a lot of collaborations that you can make. But I think that for women, I don't know why we're getting on this topic, but I think for women, right, there is a competition and it happens in corporate America. It's so bad in corporate America.
It's bad in corporate, and I would say even in entrepreneurship. I mean, I could drill it down. Podcasters, authors, coaches, like these different worlds that I'm in, and it goes back to the core values and alignment, and what you and I are talking about, which is exactly why we had lunch together that day. Was we're comfortable with who we are, and I tend to believe that if there is some weird dynamic, that if I feel comfortable, then it's something that's going on within that person. And we
Yeah.
never know what's going on
Yeah.
within that. And specifically, we're talking about women. And that's why I'm like, let's bring women together in the room, because the saying is true, rising tides lifts all ships. And so I just keep trying to do that. And my podcast is all about that too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Having these conversations is helpful because having that self check, like the self awareness that we need to check ourselves in these moments when we're having these conversations, just like we need to check ourselves with trauma responses. I'm thinking about this a lot. Like, what's coming up for you as far as what doesn't feel good? We're having a conversation about money. I talk about money a lot, and that money, I hate talking about, like, looking at my finances, and like, I'm not into it, right? But
Either.
if we want to move into those higher levels, we need to start operating at those higher levels, facing those fears,
Yep.
and realizing that we have the ability to fail, and that's okay. Failure is an option.
It is. And that the discomfort around money, I'm hyper independent, and I know that comes from being divorced twice and having to, being afraid of depending on anyone financially. And so I get really weird about it, and I'm aware of it. And it's just like, okay, how can I dial down the hyper part of the independence and just be independent?
Hmm.
And that swings more into, my conversations in my marriage, but still wanting to work on the projects I do, because publishing a book isn't cheap. Running a conference isn't cheap. These starting a business, it ain't free.
Right.
So it's thinking, and those are all uncomfortable things to do. But I know I say this to myself. My mantra sometimes is I'm growing, I'm growing, I'm growing. And so by facing these things like money, or just the bionic hamster that I call my brain, and parsing out some of these thoughts that are just thoughts, we're the
Yep.
ones that give them meaning. It just, I'm growing and
You-
sitting in the discomfort of that.
You're growing. And this leads us to the next ingredient, declaring a bigger game. You're literally in the moment declaring the bigger game for yourself.
Yes. Yes. And I follow a lot of this is through clarity. When I, made a big shift in my life in my early 40s with not drinking, and just, okay, with all this time I have left, like, just for fun little facts, like, uh, for me, I gave myself about 800 hours back a year when I quit drinking. And this can be quitting
Wow.
anything. So it's thinking about drinking, actually drinking, recovering from drinking. Well, 800 hours is a lot.
It's a
Well,
lot.
what can I do with that? Well, I'm going to do something bigger. I got a coaching certification, started a business, started a podcast. Like, and all didn't happen at once.
Yeah.
This has been over 5 years. And so that's the bigger game. I call it growing out, because I still have my full-time job, and there's nowhere really up to go from where I'm at, and in pro hockey. So how do I grow out? And that's the bigger game for me. And it's also, how do I grow personally, mindset pieces, and that's really important to me.
Yeah. It's amazing. And as we declare the bigger game, I think one of the pieces here is giving ourselves permission to step into that place before we actually see the results.
Yes.
And, that's those micro decisions that we make every single day. We need to take those decisions as if we've already walked into that next level.
Exactly. It's not it's not maybe I'll do this. It's just it's I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And do it messy.
Yeah. And a lot of this comes into investing into ourselves, Tony. We just talked about running a business. It costs a lot of money. Starting anything costs a lot of money. There is an investment of money that we may not have right now or see that we have that money right now. But I can tell you, like, I have a couple of things coming up for me, Tony, that I need to make decisions on.
Mhm.
And I need to do some work to get to that next level. If I don't make an investment here, I can't get here. Right. So, how do I just like step in and just say, you know what? I'm going to step into that next level CEO space, make the decision that's good for me and my business so that I can accelerate. Because as I accelerate, everyone on my team accelerates.
Yeah.
My family accelerates. There's risk to be taken in small business entrepreneurship.
Well, and the question you can ask yourself too is, what's the cost if I don't do it?
Yeah.
Because there's a cost. We just, and and when I'm making big decisions like this, the business side of me goes to the ROI. Okay, I'm spending X. What will I need to do in order to recoup the investment? And how long will that take me? It's somewhat a guessing game,
Yeah.
but I always look at the ROI. And as long as I'm not watching TV during the day, I'm working towards generating revenue or whatever I am for that ROI.
Here we go, daytime TV. Where so as long as you're not sitting and watching daytime TV, well, because in the daytime is when people are working, the daytime is when you could be finding new clients, and when you have your own business, it's up to you. You get to choose. You're not waiting for somebody to say yes to you for a job offer. There's a lot of people sitting down right now waiting for job offers, and it's hard because there's only so many jobs.
Yeah.
And there, as you get up into the higher echelon, there's even less jobs. But I can tell you there are more clients that you can find than jobs.
100%.
So there are probably, 2% of jobs that will hire you, but then there's like 25 clients that might hire you. It's a different game.
Yes. And it's a
Yeah.
smart way to think about it, what you're talking about, because 25 clients, when you think about the world population of 7 billion, I mean, 25 is whatever, less than half of 1% or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's understanding what you're passionate about. Well, I always start with interest. What are you interested in? You don't have to be passionate about it. What are you interested in? Because that could turn into a passion. How do you monetize it? And how do you find those 25 people in a world of 7 billion?
Yeah.
It's not, it depends on the person. It might sound overwhelming, but really if you love what you're doing, it's not going to feel hard.
Yes. This is true. You don't feel like you're working. You feel like you're pursuing your purpose, and what else really is there? Especially as I'm an empty nester, Tony. So, like, when you get older, your kids are out of the house, like, you have plenty of time. So, you're either going to go lunch or do daytime television or, whatever it is you're going to do. And I don't want to, like, hate on those people that are doing that and that's what they're doing. But I mean, I have something that I want to do with my life. I'm obsessed with transformation. I think that's what my obsession is. I'm obsessed with life transformation. I love a good redo, a makeover.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really, yeah. And so when I can see that happening, when I can see the before and after, I get super excited about that.
Yeah, and you and I align on that. I would say I'm obsessed with similar. It's like goal setting and achieving goals and not achieving them too, because then you can see your resilience, your grit, all these things, especially in women.
Yeah.
And so that transformation happens with the stuff I'm obsessed with the habits and building it. And getting off track and then getting on track. And then I would say one more thing is I'm becoming more obsessed with the brain and how it works, and then self-talk.
Yes.
Because boy, does self-talk hold us back, especially as women. Like, we're really hard on ourselves. So
Mm.
how do we treat ourselves better?
Yeah. How can we be kinder to ourselves? How are the words that we're saying aiding to our success? Because the story we tell ourselves about ourselves gets in the room before we do. And it's the most important story we're ever going to tell. I love this conversation, inviting failure to the table, having a failure resume, stop playing small because someone else is, and declaring a bigger game. I think that it's a conversation we need to have more often. And I just have a few more questions before we end the podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me one of the biggest lessons you've learned. You have such an interesting job. Tell us something that nobody else knows or that you've learned from your job that you want to tell everyone.
Yeah, I get often asked about my job as a general manager of a men's professional hockey team. I would say that what most people don't know is that most of my job is in meetings. So it's, the sausage, I know how the sausage is made, my team and I do, and there are a lot of people that want to work in pro sports. And that was never my goal. My story is pretty interesting how I ended up here on accident, but I will say that it's not as sexy behind the scenes as people would think, and it's long hours and it's non-traditional hours because when you all are spending your discretionary income looking for entertainment or sports, we're working. And
Mm,
so and some of that is seems obvious, but to others it's not. And the other thing I will say is I get often asked, so do you take the off season off? And I and I laugh because no, the off season is actually busier because we're planning everything for
right.
the season. So there's a
I
little
love that.
behind the curtain.
Do the players do any self-development work, growth
They do.
work?
They
Oh,
do. So they have a life coach specific to professional sports because it is a whole different beast when you are at that elite level of athleticism. And because at a point somewhere along their career, they're transitioning into becoming regular people like me and you. And so, how do
mm.
you make that transition as well? So, yes, they do.
Oh, I love that. I often think like I would love to coach professional sports players because as they transition out of sports into the real world, a lot of them want to start businesses. And so I've spoken to a couple ex-sports professional sports people, and those conversations came up. I think it's really interesting because now in that next chapter, or I call it the phase two, they really need to call it and think about it from a purpose perspective. How do they want to give back and share potentially their message, or they want to start a business? I think it's super interesting. I love that. Is there any final words you want to say to the audience about our topic today?
No, I just what a great conversation. And I would love for more women in particular to have these conversations with one another and find someone that you don't know at a conference and ask them to have lunch with you.
I love that. I love that. Make sure you talk about a scoop of tuna, a scoop of chicken salad, all that stuff. And, ask someone to lunch because you just never know where you're going to end up. You never know,
You
Toni. It
never
was
know.
so great having you as a guest on the Stay on Course podcast.
Thanks, Julie. It's a pleasure. Can't wait to have you on Women In.